comes down to one big word: the risk to trust. Risk. Risk is such an important word. People that are in control don't want to be told, yeah, you don't have to worry. What, are you kidding? Not worry about tomorrow? You've got to be out of your mind. Controlled people are afraid to risk. Of course they're afraid. Their whole life is predicated on trying to maintain this balance and this juggle. And you're telling a controlled person, take the shot. Let it go. Don't get into the worry. Don't get into the rumination tonight. Walk into that office tomorrow and let it unfold. Risk finding out for once. Takes a little guts, doesn't it? See, that's where the coaching aspect comes in. With this approach, I can lay out a paradigm for understanding what needs to be done. Self-talk, step 1, 2, 3. We could take a look at your control juggle. We could see what's going on in your life. But then we come to that moment of truth. Then when you're all ready, and then when you know that your control juggle is strangling you and you know something has to be done, then it's time to light the fire. Because then it's time to take the plunge. Now most of you have been on a diving board at one point in your life. And you've been on the edge of that diving board, and that's what it's like. It's 120 degrees out, and that blue water is right below you, and you want to get in that pool so badly. And there you are, your toes are curled on the edge of that board, and you're scared to death. You're frozen. You want to take the plunge, but you're afraid. Everything in you is locked. And that's that moment of truth. In order to break these habits, you've got to take the plunge and trust. Now my job in trying to put this forward in a self-help format is to convince you to take that plunge. Once you understand what habits are contaminating your life, once you understand that these habits have to be stood up to and broken, the final step then is taking the plunge. You know, some people might say it's risky. Well, I would say to you, your life depends on it. You know, we go around one time in this whole experiment of life, and this is the only time you're going to get. And it makes sense to me that if you're going to spend it with anxiety and depression, it's worth a belly flop or two. It's worth taking that plunge. It's critical. Living your life more spontaneously. You see, that's the other side of taking the plunge. We get away from control, finally, and now we start to live life reflexively, spontaneously. Not from this congested, sinus-ridden head of ours, but from our gut, intuitively, spontaneously. There's a story, actually it's one of my favorite stories, it's in the Zen tradition. A monk is walking along a mountain path, and a tiger comes bounding out after him. And he sees a branch, a vine, growing out of the side of the cliff. So he jumps off the side of the cliff and grabs onto the vine. So here's the monk now, he's holding on to the vine. And the tiger's above him, the tiger's swooping down, trying to get at him. And there's our monk holding on to the vine. The vine begins to break. And there's seconds left before he is dropped to his death. He notices a strawberry growing right in front of him out of the cliff. And he looks at the strawberry, and his last words were, "It's a magnificent red strawberry. I think I'll eat it." And then, boom, he dies. Quite a story, huh? What it says is that for that monk, there was no mental congestion. There was no past. There was no future. There was one pristine moment. And in that pristine moment stood a red strawberry. And that monk was focused on that red strawberry. And that monk was in bliss. That's how you need to live your life, in the moment. If you are a sufferer of anxiety, depression, panic, etc., etc., you are not in the moment. Depression usually spends most of its time in the past, anxiety most of its time in the future. But you are not in the moment. You need to get in the moment, and the only way you can do that is to risk trusting. You see, because to live in the moment means you're going to give up this. In AA they have a term, let go, let God. Let go of that ego. Let go of that control. Trust in here or out there, but let go and trust. One way to be in the moment is whatever you do, begin to engage it from the heart rather than the head. Start getting used to letting go of the control. If you rake leaves, if you wash a dish, get into it, feel it, the tactile grip of the rake or the squeaky clean of a dish. Whatever you're doing, put yourself totally into the experience and get out of your head. Now, if you're a control person, you know what you usually do. When you do anything, you're usually somewhere else. Maybe tomorrow, your to-do list, you're always somewhere else, always somewhere else. You're living your life somewhere else. You might as well have someone else live your life. What's the sense of living if you're not seeing the strawberries? What's the sense of living if you're somewhere else? You see, you're giving up your life. If you have anxiety and depression, it's trying to let you know that your life isn't being lived the way it needs to be lived. It's not being lived the way it needs to be lived, and it needs to be brought back to a focus and to a center, and you need to live your life appropriately. So it's time to give up your control juggle, to give up doubt. It's probably the last key word I want to mention is doubt, because it is the antithesis of trust. And if you're a control person and if you suffer, you're also very familiar with doubt. You doubt everything. Controlled people, you see, insecurity starts with you, but then you project it out onto life itself. What was once your own insecurity has now become a distrust of life, fate. I don't have any luck. This isn't going to work out. You see, that's the projection of the same insecurity now out onto life. So doubt has become your companion. So we're going to be changing doubt and replacing it with trust. We're going to be taking that plunge. And what you're really going to be doing is you're going to be learning that there are many, many, many strawberries every day, all around you. And you just haven't noticed one of them. Thank you all for coming out. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.